What's up, waifus and weeboos and other anime people and everyone in the podcast landscape? Welcome.
Weeaboos.
WeChats. You
We
can
don't
tell
care.
I haven't seen a lot of anime in my life,
I can tell just from what you said there. Yep.
but I believe that minds, like parachutes, work best open. And so I was excited to watch Spirited Away
Me too.
for my second time, actually. I watched it once in 2015.
Oh.
I watched it again, and I was hoping, well, no spoilers.
Yeah.
I mean, this is one of the biggest hits to ever come out of Japan, not animated or not. It's the biggest hit in Japan. It made over $200 million before it even hit American shores.
Right.
Which is the first film to ever do that.
Is it still the highest
in Japan, yes.
grossing animated film in Japan?
And the record standing, oh God, the thing that it beat was Titanic. It overtook Titanic for that.
Oh, it's the highest grossing film.
In Japan.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, with over 200 mil just in Japan.
And in
Worldwide.
2016, it was voted
In Japan.
it's huge in Japan. In 2016, it was voted the fourth best film of the 21st goddamn century.
By
Which
who?
fourth?
As
Best?
picked by 177 film critics from around the world, making it the highest ranking animated movie on that list. Fourth best.
Man.
Number 4.
I like animated films.
We had a poll on Twitter, and people were like, yep, you guys should make a podcast about it. So here we are.
Here we are.
You win.
I'm having a rough time right now, guys.
Okay, well, let's start with David. David, give this movie a rating out of 10 using your personal system.
I give it 6 angry anime eyes out of 6.
Really?
No, I give
Out of
it
6.
I give it 9.2.
Oh.
This is a lasting icon of animation that remains at the peak of what hand-drawn cinema has ever achieved.
9.2 angry anime eyes. Okay. Riley?
You're next, James.
No, I'm last. I'm
Why?
always last.
Are you?
Because I rule the show and I get to be cool.
So I need to preface this with the fact that like I looked up after I saw the movie, I kind of looked up a bunch of stuff and I like realized how highly rated this thing is. And I knew that it was like a big, it was a big deal going in, but I got to tell you, I was this was decidedly bleh for me. I gave it a 6 out of 10. I thought that's why when you said 6.2, I was like, really?
Uh-oh.
I give it a 6 out of 10. It didn't do it for me, obviously, but we'll get into why. My slogan is, I wish I was Japanese so I could understand this movie. I'm going to be the hater this episode, I guess. Somebody has to be.
Maybe you're not alone. Let's find out.
Oh, boy. Well, I mean, a billion people can't be wrong. Except I guess I'm on the wrong side of history because this movie sucks.
There he is. There he is.
Gosh, I didn't bring my
didn't
boxing
like
gloves.
it.
I need my fighting cans today.
We have, man, there's so much to talk about here. Because I understand why people love it. You know?
I understand the words you're trying to say. I'm with you, though. I can see it's a good movie.
Yeah.
It's just not a good movie.
I can understand how like uptight artiste film critics, watch this and they're like, "Oh, it's a masterpiece."
But that's not the people that
I
we're
know.
talking about.
What? Yes, it is.
It's not though.
It's
Because
highest.
It's highest grossing though. It's the
no.
sales.
It's the 4th highest rated among film critics.
Yeah, but it's also like all the records for sales.
It's both.
Like
yeah,
people went to see it
it's
again
both.
and again.
It's both. It's both.
Not in North
but
America.
we're dumb.
No, we're not weebs.
We're not.
Wait, are we?
I've been called a dweeb my whole life.
Okay, I do have more than 10 waifu pillows, but body pillows.
Is that legal? It's very
I think you
Utah.
get on a list once you're past 7.
It's very Utah of you. Did
Yeah.
anyone make a slogan? I didn't make a
I
slogan.
made a slogan.
You didn't make I made a slogan. I already said it.
Yeah, I said it
Oh.
too.
Oh,
Well,
dang it.
why don't we start with things that you did like about the
Wait,
movie?
we can't do
Oh,
that.
gosh.
We can do that after we read the synopsis.
Oh,
You know,
I forgot we had that.
we do, and
Hey, what happens in this movie, James?
well, 2001 Spirited Away is a story of a 10-year-old girl named Chihiro, whose family takes a wrong turn on the way to their new house. They stumble upon an abandoned theme park which traps their spirits inside somehow, with the girl's parents turned into pigs and Chihiro left to fend for herself. Kind of. She's helped by a young man who turns out to be a dragon later on, named Haku,
Spoilers.
who tells her to get a job at the bathhouse, which is owned by a witch named Yubaba, lest her spirit be trapped forever. Chihiro makes her way to the penthouse of the bathhouse where she compels the witch to give her a job, which Yubaba apparently can't refuse due to some oath. But Yubaba also takes the opportunity to change Chihiro's name to Sen, because apparently if you forget your real name, your spirit is trapped forever, which is what happened to Haku. Or Haku. How do you pronounce that?
Tragic. Haku. Yeah.
Haku. Okay. The little girl, Sen, now called Sen, proceeds to use the power of kindness to break various spells and get everyone to like her, including Yubaba's giant baby, who is ultimately used as leverage to negotiate the release of Sen and her parents. In the end, the family returns to their car to find it covered in leaves, which is confusing, as the parents don't remember anything, while Chihiro has grown into a strong, independent girl ready to take on the world, depending on which version of the movie you watch.
Oh.
Because that ending is actually slightly different, whether you're watching the Japanese dub or the Japanese version with subtitles or the dubbed Disney version.
I didn't know that.
But first, a message from our sponsor. Carpool Critics is supported by Manscaped, the best in men's below-the-belt grooming. Manscaped offers precision engineered tools for your family jewels, including the greatest goddamn ball hair trimmer on the planet Earth,
Wow.
the Lawnmower 3.0. Riley, I love your balls.
You ask
but
me
they
every
could
time.
be better if they were groomed with something that had ceramic blade, 7,000 RPM quiet stroke motor, and even an LED light so you can see what you're doing.
I really want to use that on my balls.
Please get one of these. You get 20% off and free shipping with the code CARPOOL at manscaped.com. Yeah? We're also brought to
okay.
you by Private Internet Access. PIA helps you hide your true IP address so you can bypass geo restrictions and censorship. You can connect up to 5 devices at once, and it includes an internet kill switch. Give me the sound effect. That's new this week.
Yeah.
If your VPN gets disconnected involuntarily. PIA is available for Windows, Mac, Android, iOS, and even as a Chrome extension, so check it out at lmg.gg/carcoolpia.
What?
Carpool PIA.
Okay. You said carcoolpia.
Carpool.
Carpoolpia.
Ooh, I want to be called that.
Okay, here's the
Carpool
thing.
Welcome to
critics.
the land of carpoolpia.
Carpoolpia. Here's the
We're
thing,
full.
David.
It's full of kami.
There's a thing called
That's the name for the spirits.
there's a concept in Japanese Shinto culture called kami kakushi. You know
Love
of
those
this?
guys.
Have you heard of this?
They're delicious.
So what that is like a person, it is believed, can go and have an experience or journey in the spirit realm that they learned from subconsciously, and when they wake up, they don't really remember it, but it affected their subconscious, and it's then up to that person to move forward in their life, either integrating the things that they learned from that experience or just disregarding them.
You said this was called a kami kushi?
Kami kakushi.
Kami kakushi.
Yeah.
Right,
So-
because the spirits are called kami.
Yeah, sure.
K-A-M-I.
So in the original version of the movie, this whole movie is a kamikakushi for her, right? And then so she gets in the car at the end of the movie, and there's no indication that she remembers it. Really, she is wearing a hair tie that she was given in that world, but she kind of just continues to look out the window and has kind of the same blasé attitude she has at the beginning of the movie, and that kind of implies this whole cultural artifact here. Like, she had this journey, but we don't know if it's strong enough in her subconscious to be integrated into how she lives her life going forward. And that's just open-ended, and Japanese culture understands that. And it's kind of a cool question mark at the end of the movie. But in the American version of the movie, they kind of put a lid on it, and she says to her father, like, yeah, I'm ready to face the world. Yeah, my character arc is closed. Like, I was weak at the beginning, and then I did all these things, and now I'm an independent person who can take stuff on.
So Westerners wouldn't necessarily understand that at the end of this journey, she might not, like, there's a chance she won't remember it, whereas it's a familiar concept in Japan. Interesting.
Yeah, I feel like Westerners, without that context, they're just like, what? It was a dream? That's stupid. What a waste of time.
Well, I think I would be asking myself, was it a dream or did it actually happen?
Especially with that hair tie being present.
Well, and the grass is their car's like overgrown.
Yeah, time has passed, clearly.
Yeah. A lot of time, because like the road was clear before, and now it's like grass has grown there. I thought it was only like a couple days, but like that would have been months.
Yeah, that's kind of weird. How much time was it?
Maybe it was magic grass grows fast.
True. I didn't think
Everyone
about
knows that
magic
expression.
grass. There's
Magic
always
grass
the
goes fast.
possibility that magic grass is involved.
See,
It's a better time that way.
so I think it's important to talk about, the dub, the English dub versus the Japanese with the English subs. I think that both versions are pretty valid. The English dub is a high budget, fully well translated version. They do take creative choices where in the Japanese version, there's a lot more thematic that's kind of explored. And in this, they kind of just laser focus into this one idea of it's a movie about her growing up. It's a coming of age story, whereas in the Japanese subbed version, it's a little bit more about other things like not looking back, and it's all revolving around that same theme. But
were
it does
you
a better
gonna-
job of being a little bit more complex.
I was just gonna say, did you guys watch what version did you watch?
I have in the past always watched the English voice dub. Really? This time I watched the Japanese, and it didn't feel hugely different. It's definitely less distracting having voices I don't recognize than the voice of like Max from Goof Troop and Meg from Hercules come out of those mouths.
Were those people in the Spirited Away dub?
Yeah.
Oh wow.
And so I'm like,
Yeah, I didn't
oh,
know that either. I was like, I was looking at you weird. Like, how is it less distracting to have to read subtitles of a foreign language?
I find it's in the same way that Star Wars, the first one, works because like those are people you only know from Star Wars. This is like, those are voices that I only can associate with this, so I don't
Right.
have to bring in this extra baggage of Goof Troop and Hercules.
I watched it with not the dub, the original version with subtitles, because I feel like that's the only real way that I've watched any anime.
That's
I
like
haven't-
the consensus is people usually recommend
Yeah.
anime generally that way.
Because I mean, me being a voice actor, I know that like there's a lot of people that do a really good job doing these English dubs, right? And I've done dubs for anime, and it's not easy. You have to kind of like time it properly. But I think that a lot of the time, what that ends up with is kind of like weirdly paced speaking, like somebody like changing the way that they speak in order to match up properly with the animation, and then it sounds a bit awkward.
And I know
so
that
I feel like it takes away a lot.
They did do a lot of effort to make the words match up with the movement of the characters' mouths. That's what we were talking
It's
about.
not even. It's not even the with the movement of the
They
mouth.
did for this movie. They did.
Okay, so sometimes when like people are making very specific shapes with their mouth, if you're saying like, "No, you did it," like, and they're like, there's something like that, you wanna match it up in that way. But most of the time, if someone's just like talking normally in anime, the mouth's just kind of opening and closing, and there's not really a ton of actual shapes being done there. So then you just have to really worry about the timing. But anyways, the point being that I like hearing the original inflection and the original acting from the Japanese actors. Maybe because I'm more attuned to that kind of thing, but I don't know.
I'm with you there in general, but here's 2 good reasons to listen to the English dub. Here's 3. Number 1, that's what I had available to me. Number 2, the director, writer, what's the guy's name? Yeah.
Hayao magazine, whatever.
He actually recommends doing it in your own native language, whatever's easier, so that you actually can just focus on the visuals,
Right.
which the movie is so highly esteemed for. They're awesome, right?
Yeah.
And reason number 3, it's not a regular, like a crappy, cheap dub. Disney dubbed it. They spent a lot of time doing it. They're using good voice actors, and
Disney dubbed it.
yeah, because
See,
Disney bought Pixar. They do to work there. Lasseter. That's Lasseter. Yeah, he loved it and he got the rights for Disney to distribute it.
See, I hear that, but then like, so I watched it with the subtitles, and then I saw clips. I watched some video essays for this because I was like, what am I missing? Why is this such a popular movie? And they played clips from the English dub in that, and I was like, I was unimpressed. So
I was nonplussed. Yeah, it can be a
Okay.
little weird, especially that Lynn character, the maid that it kind of helps her out. The other
that's
cleaning
Meg
person
from Hercules.
Yeah, her voice is kind of like, whoa, it really stands out. There's an American in this bathhouse.
There's other
Okay.
things they do in the English dub where they'll narrate kind of locations because we wouldn't recognize them in the West, where like there's a shot of a bathhouse, and in the Japanese version it's just a shot of a bathhouse, but in the Western version it's like, oh, it's a bathhouse.
Yeah, because otherwise you're like, hey, a building. Looks Japanese. You have no
okay,
idea.
so let's get into why we think this movie is so beloved, and I'm going to put the burden of proof on you, David.
Yeah, David, you're on
because
trial.
you're the lover here.
Okay, sure. I think you can start with the animation. I think it's a stellar use of the medium. It's one of the most beautiful hand-drawn movies. It covers a huge variety of looks, of feelings, but it's just like the way everything moves, the detail, like the way that like when she's barefoot, her feet are dirty as she's running. There's just so much in this that feels kinetic and energetic, and
Yeah.
like there's beautiful scenes. Like the it's just so masterfully painted and drawn.
I heard that they put in like more frames than most other hand-drawn things did, and even for like background characters, none of them are duplicated. They're all actual individual characters. They all, even if they're in the background and not in focus, they're all moving. And apparently that boiler room dude,
Yep.
he's like harder to animate than the genie from Aladdin, with all his arms and
Right.
like his mustache alone. Crazy amount of detail.
They individually animated every single hair in his mustache.
One day, someone will do that for you, Riley.
Did you guys find? Yeah, I gotta say, does he look like Robotnik to you guys?
Yeah,
Yeah, he's a bald guy with a big mustache and
Yeah,
little
crazy
glasses.
I can't deny the imagery is fantastic. I think the only reason that I feel like I might give it a 7 throughout the course of this conversation. I feel it happening. It's not happened yet, but it's a premonition. Yeah, everything that I like about this movie obviously is I think related to the beauty there. The landscape that she's crossing, the train scene as they're like crossing over the ocean or whatever, and just like it's a beautiful scene. I just wish it made any sense.
Okay, so I want
What
to.
else is nice?
I think a big thing that I missed on the first times I watched it, and I had to actually research this. This movie is not self-evident in its themes necessarily, but once you kind of like tune into what it's trying to go for, it's actually very strong thematically. It is a movie about growing up. Like she's literally leaving her home and entering the workplace.
Yeah.
And this is a movie about like what it's like to work, and she's moving up the chain. She works in the boiler room, the bathhouse, and then she like leaves to serve her friend. But it's more than entering the workforce. It's a movie about purpose. Everything in this movie either has purpose, doesn't have purpose, or it has the wrong purpose. And that's what I think is kind of the main theme of this movie is you need to find your purpose in order to find the balance in your life. And that's a very Shinto principle, is you need to have like pure, clean thoughts according to your principle. And so like it's very evident in scenes with like the water spirit or the river spirit. When the river spirit comes in, he's just a big
The stink guy.
yeah. You think he's presented as a stink spirit,
The stink monster.
Stink spirit,
stink
yeah.
spirit, and he comes in and everyone's
Smelly
afraid of him, and it's a great scene. Everyone's like, "No,
Yeah.
don't come. We're closed. We're
Oh, I
closed."
love that scene.
And then he goes into the bath and he's getting cleaned, and he's not getting cleaned. He's just making the water dirty, and it's
Yeah.
gross. And I love the way it's animated. It's like a very effectively gross for a hand drawn thing. But then Chihiro, who's now called Sen because she's lost her identity, but I'll come back to that later, pulls out this thing in him, and in the same way that like he's kind of lost his purpose by becoming dirty, by becoming like unpure, when she pulls that out, he's able to kind of refine that spirit, become the mask that represents old man wisdom, and then turn into a dragon and fly off. So it's all very like Shinto imagery.
Oh, yeah.
And it's you do need to understand the context of it. And as a Western audience, we do miss a lot of that.
Yeah,
For
one of the
sure.
things I struggled with was, is what I'm seeing, like frankly befuddling, because I'm not familiar with like the cultural imaginary of Japan, or is it partly that, and then partly some of the symbolism is like folkloric that most Japanese people don't even know? Because I've watched some video essays like this guy's just showing me like these cartoons are based on this.
Yeah, yeah.
Yubaba is based on this kind of witch, but even the things they were based on, they were abstractions of those things. They weren't exact replicas
Right.
of those things in most cases. So I wonder how subtle it is to a Japanese audience, or if it's just like obvious.
Well, I think that, like we're maybe more familiar with like Norse mythology or whatever. And if we see somebody who's like, his name's Thor or his name's some variation of that and he has lightning powers or whatever, we're like, oh, okay, we recognize that character.
Or even just like, oh, they're eating greedily and they turn into pigs. Pigs, greed.
Yeah.
Pigs and greed, we know that.
Yeah. Well, and that I mean, I picked up on that one, obviously. But I think that's definitely the reason why. When the credits rolled, I think I said out loud, I was like, what the fuck was that?
Wait, you were awake when the credits? I'm
Yep.
serious, man. I put this movie on Saturday night. 20 minutes in, I was lights out.
I think
I tried to get on Sunday. I was in and out by like the hour and a half mark.
I think I maybe would have slept if I wasn't like hoping so hard that there would be some sort of sense made. But and there wasn't really. Now, I don't want to bash the movie for its like lack of themes or depth or whatever. Obviously, after I saw the movie, I looked all this stuff up and I'm like, oh, okay, these are the kami, this is based on the Shinto religion. Like there's all sorts of inherent meaning there for Japanese viewers to like latch onto. So I think it made a way more sense for Japanese viewers, but I think I just like, and then there was a whole, there's a whole bit, and we'll get into this about the influence of Western industrialism on the Japanese
Yeah,
the
that was
country.
a cool-
They were kind of like they felt like they were being oppressed a bit by like these Western values that were being imposed on them, and so the movie is sort of an ode to bringing it back to our roots, like Japanese traditional traditions.
I think I saw the same video essay where, yeah, they were arguing that there was a change made post World War II, and the movie was arguing that you need to find a balance. You need to hear the voices of your ancestors, but also move on with the modern world and kind of balance that out, which I think is a very Shinto thing to do, to find balance, right? But what I'm trying to get to the bottom of is are we dumb? Or has everyone else seen this movie a bazillion times? Or is it bad for this to be your first anime movie to watch, and you should start somewhere else so that you're kind of more literate when you see it?
I think it's a combo of all of those things. You can't separate.
We are dumb.
We are dumb. And you can't separate.
But you're not dumb because you like it.
So
I don't think. Wait.
I want to clarify. You're not dumb if you don't like this movie. And if you're not dumb if you don't have the cultural
double
context.
negative.
You are not dumb. You are not
he
dumb.
He said you're not dumb if you don't like this movie.
Yeah, it's okay to not like this movie, and it's okay to feel like you're not fully grasping the things. I'm going to be honest. The first time I saw it, I was like 10 or 11. I'm sure I did not understand 90% of this movie.
This is what's perplexing to me with the box office that it has, and the fact that the main character is 10, and the director, writer of this movie said he wanted 10-year-old girls to be able to see themselves in the movies, and it wasn't like a Disney princess romantic thing. So it's for kids. How smart are these kids?
Wait.
What is going on?
But I was just gonna say that the you can make an argument that the fact that the plot doesn't really make a ton of sense, kids don't care about that.
It's irrelevant to them.
They will, they'll enjoy it the same way that they'll enjoy Doolittle.
But it's boring.
What?
It's
not
agree.
boring.
I think moment to moment, there's really cool things that are happening. In the boiler room, there's these really cute suits, and they're doing this thing, and she does like a favor for them, and then they're like, oh, she can lift all the rocks for us, and then there's a dragon in the next second, and then there's a monster that turns into a spirit into another dragon. It's just really cool moment to moment.
The imagery and the crazy characters, the wacky cast of characters in this movie. I think that kids, I can totally understand how kids would enjoy it. The thing that bothered me about it was the fact that it lacked a cause and effect kind of structure, and any sort of Chihiro starts out being kind of like a spoiled. I mean, not they don't seem especially rich, although he does have an Audi. She seems kind of like a spoiled, whiny kid who's just kind of like, I want my way and I'm upset about it. And then by the end of the movie, she's kind of gone on this journey and become this person who's like, hey, I'm going to help people if they need help. And I understand that people have emotions and they might not be acting rationally all the time. And I'm going to be this grown-up person. But we don't see why or how that happens. I know that her being forced to kind of work in the bathhouse is supposed to have kind of brought her on that journey. But she basically immediately switches from being this spoiled little kid to being this hardworking, kind, understanding girl. And we're like, where did that happen? What taught her to do that?
It's not completely immediate, actually. There's
I know it's not immediate. It takes a while to happen, but nothing actually triggers the change in her.
Okay.
It just kind of happens.
I don't know. I feel like there's lots of little things that are happening.
Who teaches her to be kind and understanding?
She
leaves the door open for No Face. Who taught her to be nice there?
Well, she thinks that he's a customer. So that's her ignorance, just her naivety.
Okay, so that's not kindness, right? All right, fair enough. But so even there, where does it happen? What causes it to happen?
I guess the first pivotal moment is when she cleans the stink monster, right?
That's a huge moment, but I think even before that, so she goes to see Kajami in the basement, and when she's going to see him, she's hiding behind the thing, and she's kind of too shy to even ask, excuse me. But
even earlier than that, has to go down these big steps to get there, and she doesn't want to. She's very timid, and it's a force of nature that compels her into that chaos. One of the stairs breaks, and she falls down the stairs, and then she's just out the door. And even earlier than that, when they're walking through the tunnel to the theme park in the beginning, there's wind behind her blowing her in. So it's kind of just, I think that means the world is going to happen, so you better be ready for it because you can't control the environment around you.
Right.
And then you can see when she goes to ask for the job from Yubaba, she's already getting more forceful. She's yells at her, no, I need a job. And she's understanding the gravitas of the situation she's in. She's seen herself kind of fading. She's already had these interactions, and she's getting stronger, emotionally stronger. And that's a new milestone for her. She's no, give me the job. I'm not leaving until I have this job. And so already she's starting to grow, and she has the next encounter, which is stink monster.
Yeah, she only was insisted in that scene because Haku was don't stop asking.
Yeah, but she could have also just been like, he wasn't there to be like, you got to do it.
And Yubaba's really intimidating too.
I guess this makes a little more sense when you think about, this is not me coming up with this, I saw this somewhere, that like in Japanese culture, there's a lot of respect for, you have respect for your elders. You don't really like, you're not going to fight back, you're not going to talk back. So I think that in a situation where she's being told, look, this is the only way for you to survive, you have to work at this bathhouse, and then once she's in the bathhouse, she's like, I better not lose this job or else I'm going to die. So she's literally just like doing her absolute best to not get in trouble. And I guess that explains some of the, like the quote unquote kindness, but then it's like, it kind of cheapens it for me because she's not actually being kind then, she's just trying to not die.
I think kind of thematically going back to the theme being finding your purpose, she's got these kind of two jobs, but those aren't her purpose. They're just like tools along the way for her to find her purpose, which is to help her friend get better. And that's like when she actually finds balance, when she actually kind of completes her arc, is when she's on the quest to now help Haku, not just survive in this
not
world.
just save her parents,
Yeah.
but help her friend.
And so I think this movie is about the journey of like working through employment and not realizing that like your purpose isn't your employment. It's something outside of that. It's like bigger than that. And that you have to find like something that gives you joy, that gives you like actual deep satisfaction. And I think that's kind of the part of the point of the movie is that.
We're going back to your point how it was cheapened because she's just trying to survive and it's not true kindness then. I don't think that holds with the stink monster thing because they were trying to get him to not come into the bathhouse at all.
Yeah.
And she went contrary to that and cleaned him up.
Well, she was forced to.
But
She had no choice.
She got closer than anyone else would and would be able to like, was able to see the bicycle, which is based on a true story in Miyazaki's life.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
He had to clean a river as a child and they pulled like 11 people bound together and pulled a bike out or something.
Another one of my problems is not necessarily the kindness, but also her like her focus and her dedication to what she's doing. I don't really know where that comes from. Like when No Face offers her a bunch of gold and she says, "Oh, I don't need it." Like she's a little kid who's kind of spoiled and like whiny. Why would she not take the gold?
Well, it's not going to help her.
Well, how does she know that?
Yeah, true.
It's gold, it's money.
I think though that like within the context of the movie, she's like kind of starting to realize what's important and what's not, and like she's uncomfortable around that presence. Like he's like like no one's comfortable around the No Face guy, and so I don't know. I wouldn't want to accept anything from him.
What's the deal with No Face?
Yeah, but you're an adult.
Well, Riley, maybe they wanted to like they take the opportunity. You have to make a choice. It's like, do we want this character to act realistic and in character, or do you want this whole story to be a parable and her
and
her
I
like denying the gold is more important for
Yeah.
a message that we're trying to put in the movie?
A kid seeing that would be like, "Oh, I learned now how to not value money over everything else," and I totally understand that.
At that point, do you know that it's fake, or is it? Do you still think it's real gold?
It was fake?
Yeah, it's not.
Oh,
real
it was
gold.
fake gold, yeah.
When was that? What happened again?
It turns
No
into-
Face can just like make illusions, I guess. Well, you just asked where No Face came from.
Yeah, what's the deal with that guy, man?
He's an original creation.
Brilliant.
I think he's like sort of based on a couple different types of kami or yokai. Also another name for like spirits or gods in the Shinto
I think
religion.
yokai is like a human ghost. I think.
Is it?
I'm not. Or
No, I
it's like
think-
human becoming something.
Maybe.
It's okay. It's also a
Um,
drone in Rainbow Six. So
And Yokai Watch is a Nintendo game.
Hey.
That's basically Pokemon. But yeah, No Face, he kind of made that up. So I don't think there's like a lot of...
Well, I mean, it has such cultural relevance, though. You see people with tattoos of No Face and stuff like.
I almost got a tattoo of No Face.
Why? Why do people love him so much?
'Cause
What does he
he's-
mean?
he's
What
like-
I don't get it.
Okay, so I think
Yes.
it's more than just this movie. He's
Here we
just
go.
one of the simplest symbols of Studio Ghibli. Like he's
Okay.
very easily drawn.
Yeah.
He's very iconic. You see him, and it's like you can trust a tattoo artist to get that on your body pretty effectively. If you're like, put Princess Mononoke on my body, it's like, are you good enough to do that? I don't know.
So I was
I
talking
think-
to a friend who has them, and I was like, "What does this character mean to you?" And she's like, he's like human psychology. Like he does whatever is
Right.
going on in the scene around him." And I
Yeah.
didn't- and then someone else just like overheard and popped in, and was just another person who just loves this damn movie. It's just-
But so I think part of his arc is his lack of purpose. When he's kind of just like meandering and like wants the things that are next to him and wants that, he's without purpose, and he gets the ability to get more, and he's never satisfied with that. So like I love that scene when he goes from being kind of like soft-spoken weirdo to gluttonous monster, and he's growing and he's eating people and he's doing that and he's just unstoppable. But by the end of the movie, he's found his purpose is to make silk. and that's when he kind of is like he's
Well-
finding peace, but he's still kind of soft spoken. And then that's kind of the first time it sort of looks like he's smiling is when he's making the silk at
Well,
the
I
end.
don't-
And he stays there.
Yeah.
He
I don't
That's
necessarily-
Yobaba's twin sister. He's at her place spinning silk. And isn't he based on like a
He's silkworm, yeah,
silkworm? Yeah, okay.
sort of.
Oh, okay.
Where they can't stop eating, they can't stop growing. That's kind of the idea, but it is an amalgamation of many
I think
ideas.
the pattern on his face is similar to a silkworm as well.
Yeah, it's a pattern similar, and then his mouth is below what looks like the face, so that's like a silkworm.
I saw some wacky theories, and I don't know what do you guys think of these. That the movie is actually about prostitution.
I can
Oh.
kind of get that. Sometimes I watch it and I get that weird, gross undertone that like these bathhouses are like sex houses or are metaphors for it.
I watched a pretty not convincing YouTube video about it, but I guess the premises are thus: bathhouses used to be used for that. It takes place in like the red light district, which is used for that. Her name is changed to Sen. I guess prostitutes often their names were changed, and
Yeah, there's definitely.
oh,
an
and
element-
Yobaba as well. Like I think that's also a word for. It's the same word they use for like the mistress of a brothel, like
Right.
that title.
there's definitely an element of like human trafficking there, where she kind of like has to sign away her name in a contract and stuff. And,
Yes,
like,
Which is I love that idea that like when you forget your name, you've kind of lost your identity, and I think that's
Right.
part of the like keeping your purpose is keeping your identity, and it's
Right.
finding that balance.
Remember who you are.
I think
It
that's just a
harkens
really
back to like the Japanese tradition thing too.
Totally.
Remember who we
Yeah,
are.
I think it's just a brilliant, simple way of like demonstrating that like she's Chihiro, but is now Sen, and if she forgets, she's lost.
There's
Right.
something too with the spelling of her name. Like I think if you literally take the symbols and spell them out, it says something like 1,000 questions. And when she's reduced to Sen, that symbol just means 1,000. There's no questions anymore.
right. It's
And
just
that
like
works.
you're
where Baba Yaga, or I mean Yubaba, sees her as a number.
a numerical value,
That's
and
all
that's
she
all you
is.
are now. See, okay, so I hope that for the listeners who love this movie, we've gotten like enough into the depth of it, and there's more to talk about. But I think that like I understand that there is depth to this movie.
So you're
But
trying to demonstrate that you're not dumb?
No, yes.
We're not
please,
dumb.
Please
What?
don't hate me for being dumb. But I think that like as an entertainment experience, this movie is severely lacking. I feel like once you dive in and you're like, oh, this kami is for this, and like this theme represents this, and the imagery there is like, you know, calls back to this thing. Like, I think all that depth is there once you dive in. But as a sit down movie experience for an adult and not a stupid child, it just was sorely lacking. From the first minute that she's in the spirit world, I'm like, where are the answers? Like, give me some answers. Give me some world building. Why is she not asking any questions? She doesn't ask once, what's going on? Who are you? How does this work? None of it. And I'm like, ugh. If I was in this situation, I'd be like, I'm so confused. Why do you have 6 arms? What? Why can you fly and turn into a dragon? How is this possible?
She does take it pretty good in stride.
Yeah. And so part of that is, again, probably because, you know, Japanese viewers are just like used to the idea of like a spirit world and kami and all that stuff. But like, like even if we were watching a movie based on, you know, Viking mythology or like Western mythology, it would be like, okay, but we need to have some sort of explanation for how these things are happening right now.
Well, I totally agree. I mean, like,
There's no
you-
explanation.
You need your Luke Skywalker character to help you explore the weird things in the world.
Some
And she's-
exposition,
she's That
please.
she's that character, but they're not really using her to be like, oh, what are these things? Like, what are these spirits? And having like the explanation. That being said, the movie's already pretty long, and I wouldn't want more.
I think this is actually a problem with it. I heard somewhere that it was originally 3 hours.
Yeah.
They had 3 hours worth of material and then had to work very hard to cut things. And I think that is to the movie's detriment. Well, God, I did not need it to be an hour longer, but there's a certain consequence where you've seen Haku running around like a little boy or whatever. His little haircut.
Yeah.
And then suddenly he's just a dragon. And then she's like, "Oh, Haku!" Like I
Yeah,
just,
she
I
just
just
sees
know
him.
that that's you. And you're like,
what?
I guess we're finding out right now too.
It's the power of love.
That's fair.
Yeah, and then her love for him breaks the spell. We're like, what kind of love are we talking about here?
Yeah.
There was no romantic love, and if there were,
Wait, I
she's
think-
10.
No, I think it was a romantic love.
No, it's not.
They don't build that up.
They say your boyfriend to her.
Yeah, but I think they're
guy's
just
like,
saying
"Oh,
that
you wanna save your
my guess is
boyfriend?"
that's like a compromise word to be
It's
like.
creepy, David.
Plus, she's 10.
I don't think
And
that's
he's
what
like,
they're going for.
He's like 700 years old or something.
Thousands.
I don't think it's supposed to be a romantic love. I think it's supposed to be like like
I think love
something.
can
Fraternal,
cross
platonic.
love can cross all boundaries, even that between a 10-year-old girl and a 7,000-year-old river deity.
Oh boy.
And then she's riding him like, whoa, like
Whoa.
literally through the sky.
Jeez.
And she has like some kind of flashback of when she was younger and she was
Fell
like
into a river.
fell into a river, and then she like safely washes up on the shore.
Yeah.
And then she remembers the name of that river, and she's like, I got it.
Kotaku.com.
That's your name.
No, Kohaku.
What's the name of the river?
But
Yeah.
that's the dude's name, so that he's been trapped in this realm forever because he can't remember his real name.
Yeah.
And she just tells him. It's like, that was like a Deus Ex Machina to me. It's like, okay.
Yeah, the movie maybe
Oh,
should have
really?
started.
I thought
with
that makes
or
sense.
something.
Why does that make sense? Like,
I don't know,
It's a good
because-
thing this little girl wandered in here.
They had shown kind of flashbacks to that while she was swimming, like walking through the water and stuff, or when there was some point where she was near water or whatever, and then she had like a flashback to her like riding on the dragon, and you were like, oh, what's that about? And then they don't say anything, and then later she's riding on the dragon again, and she's like, oh, that's what that flashback was about. I remember your name. So yeah, I don't know. I
Okay,
think there was
thank
enough
you.
setup for that to be a
Thank
payoff.
you. I totally don't
You
remember
didn't
that
see
setup,
that? Okay.
so
Yeah.
I'm satisfied with that.
The visuals, though, that was so cool when she was like, Kohaku's your name. And he's like, oh, and his like eyes open wide and just like starts transforming. That was cool.
Did you guys know that there was no script for this movie? It was just like Mad Max Fury Road, where it was just all done in storyboards.
Yeah, and you can tell.
Yeah.
That's why it's so damn boring. There's like, it's like Alice in Wonderland.
What do you mean there's no script?
They
didn't write a
started
script.
shooting it or like drawing it before they knew it was going to happen and everything.
Yeah, they weren't done the story. They were like, we're going to develop this as we draw it. And you can kind of tell it's a little bit meandering a little bit.
Oh, that
but
makes
I think
so much sense.
I think that serves the theme of finding your purpose, because this movie kind of like is like,
I
what is the
guess,
purpose of
David.
this movie? And then it's like she's active. She's got things to do, but it's a little bit lost in the same way that she is.
This movie is like the Bible.
Same
There's
way-
a lot of good stuff in there. But boy,
You got to dig for it, and it requires some interpretation.
you're going to have to work.
Yeah.
It's like Alice in Wonderland. There's a bunch of cool, iconic scenes. There's a ton of meaning and subtext in the movie, but the scenes, like how they link one to the other, is so befuddling and unclear that I'm not compelled to watch like minute to minute, second to second. I'm not like, what's gonna happen next? Because I frankly have no idea what's gonna happen next.
Yeah.
'Cause nothing makes sense in this movie.
Honestly, if I didn't have to complete this movie for the podcast, I might have shut it off like halfway.
We're
Or
not-
maybe 3/4. Because I'm just really looking for some sort of. You keep talking about purpose, Daniel. That's not your name.
Let's call him that.
Devin.
Danny.
Devin, I've had enough of your nonsense today. I'm going to call you Devin. You talk a lot about purpose, David, but I didn't get that from this movie at all. I got like the importance of remembering who you are and stuff. I didn't really get purpose, and I think part of that was because I was like, what was the purpose of this movie? And later I understood that I think there's like probably the biggest overt theme that I think is like really the biggest theme I think in this movie is the Western influence versus traditional Japanese beliefs and practices and stuff. I think that's probably the biggest thing.
You know, he's driving that Audi. They
Yeah.
got lots of good cars in Japan.
Yeah,
He doesn't need to have
yeah.
a German car.
And then somebody else said that he was wearing a Western style polo. I didn't really notice that, but apparently that was Western style. And they sit down to eat and they just like start taking food that isn't theirs, which is kind of like what the West does.
very colonial.
They turn into pigs, which is like greedy capitalism type thing. So there's like a lot of that imagery, but like a metaphor is only strong, in my opinion, but also maybe objectively, when it makes sense both as the metaphor and also by itself. Like, you need to have a coherent story that you could watch, even if there was no metaphor involved at all, that would be entertaining and compelling by itself, and then you add on this metaphorical layer. Like, that's the strongest thing for me.
So if I was
And
like-
so I think this is weak because there's so much metaphorical stuff in there, but as a straight experience, as a straight entertainment movie, it just is like, I was bored.
It's weird because it's like also very complicated.
Yeah.
You know, it's not like there's nothing happening. There's a ton happening.
Oh,
but
so
you're
much.
just like, now you have a twin sister who has a curse.
Looks
but it's
exactly
like-
the same.
It's a double cross curse. Like, you cursed me, but I'll undo that curse and then go to your house and do the curse that caused the curse. It's just like...
Now I'm going to turn the baby into a rat and the big bird into a little bird and then turn the 3 heads into a baby. What?
I think it'd be really interesting to kind of compare to a really slick 90s Disney movie. Because, like, they're polar opposites in what they are and how they're presented. Because, like, a slick 90s Disney movie knows its theme from minute 1 to the end. There's not a second of no direction. Everything is momentum forward, and we're getting to the end. We're getting to the point.
Yep.
Everything is with purpose. Whereas this is a much more complicated onion of flour is being unfurled.
Right, but I think that's maybe that's just what I value most in a movie, is kind of like the attention being paid to the structure and like crafting something that will take people on a journey that like doesn't stay too long on one thing before you kind of move on to another thing. We have a purpose for this scene. In this scene, he's going to see this person doing this and realize that he has to do this other thing. And then that's going to lead into this other scene where that becomes important, what we saw in the last scene, because in this scene, blah, blah, and stuff like that. The structure of the whole thing and how it guides you along on this quest.
Is that
there was no
cultural?
guiding here.
Do they have like just a different hero myth than
Maybe.
us? And a
Maybe it's
different
cultural.
screenplay structure?
And that's kind of what I'm wondering is like, I kind of feel like when I watch anime, I go in with a certain amount of buy-in. I know that there's things that I'm not going to fully get. I know there's things that I'm going to be missing. There's layers of it that I'm not going to fully appreciate it. But I have decided to watch the movie and I'm like, I'm going to accept that those things that I don't understand are me, not the movie. And so I think that's kind of a different perspective than maybe you guys went into it.
I went in with that when I watched it in 2015. I was like, people lose their shit over these Japanese movies. I'm finally ready to bring this whole world into my life that I haven't seen before. I'm going to open my mind to this, and I'm going to be so much like wealthier for it.
Yeah.
And then I watched it, and I was like, just so let down. I was like, I guess I just don't get it. Like, I feel like I felt like a curmudgeon. Like,
yeah, you're like, these dumb the kids with their Japanese
wanted to
Japanime.
go on Facebook and be like, wow, guys, Japan's so crazy. We're so stupid over here. Like, everyone, it's like seeing a new color or something. But it wasn't like that. And then I rewatched it for this, and it was like the same thing. I was like, this movie just sucks.
I think I knew
Sucks
going
is
in.
It doesn't suck.
It doesn't suck.
It doesn't suck. I knew going in that this is how I felt about anime in general, and that's why I haven't watched a ton. Like, I watched Princess Mononoke, and I remember loving that movie because it's like a little more like badass and it's straight to the point, and this one was a bit more meandering. But the other anime show that I've watched is Attack on Titan, and I love Attack on Titan because it explains things, or it at least promises so far that they are going to explain things. There are people who are on a journey to get to the bottom of things. Like, what's going on? Let's find out. There's no finding out in this movie, and I think that a lot of anime has that, where they just kind of like, this guy can walk through walls. Why? He just can. This guy can shoot lasers out of his ears because he's one of those guys.
That's really hard to aim. That sucks.
Exactly.
What I'm trying to figure out for this movie is like, the numbers don't lie. The box office doesn't lie, right? In Japan, it was so popular. So given that, you can kind of reverse engineer it to be like, what was the experience for the average Japanese adult who saw it? Where they all walked out of the theater and were like, wow, that is crazy. Like, they knew they had enough cultural context, but then there's enough unknowns and layered meaning that it just took them all on a crazy, surreal ride, and they loved it.
I think it must be, and I'm guessing here. I'm guessing that it's the strong callback to like Shintoism and like traditional Japanese.
But with a twist.
Yeah, with the twist,
Yeah,
sure. But it's like showing these things that they recognize from their childhood and being like, hey, you're trying to be this like slick Western person. Don't worry about that. Like, come back to what it truly means to be Japanese and like our traditions and our history. Like, come back to that. And so like even adults watching that, kids would be like, oh, this is fun, crazy characters going on a silly journey. And adults can be like, whoa, I have gained purpose once more from seeing these things.
So what about the Westerners watching it? Are they all just dick riding? Is this one of those movies that's just really cool to like?
I think this is a movie.
You know what I'm saying?
I don't
You're
know.
like, oh, it's badass if you like this movie. It's like when you're 14 and you're like, you like Pulp Fiction? You like, we love Pulp Fiction.
Fight Club?
I don't know if this is
Fight Club.
because I don't. I feel like I'm seeing more. not like the everyman in the West or the every person in the West, like loving this movie just cause. Like, I feel like it's more people who are into anime or like people who are into film watching it and knowing that it has that reputation as like one of the best animated movies of all time, and then watching it and being like, I have to like it.
Yeah, it's like
I'm smarter than them, but they think they have to like it.
I think it's more to that. I think if you go to it trying to getting like a very linear, straightforward movie, you're kind of missing out on like some of the more like creative art house elements of it, and it's like a creative showpiece, and like it's weird.
Yeah.
And so I don't think
agree with you.
But you're saying it's kind of like, yeah, I like rock and roll, and I heard that Neil Peart is the best drummer of all time, so I'm just, even though I don't listen to Rush, I'm just gonna say Neil Peart, best drummer ever. Everybody knows that. There's consensus.
Yeah, a little bit, but I'm not trying to say that the movie sucks. I'm just saying that
Well, Neil
it's too
Peart's
artsy.
he's a good
It's
drummer.
like you can get to a level of craft that is so elevated. You like don't do things that have been done before, right? It's like an animated, fun Disney movie. But if Walt Disney like went to art school and did a lot of drugs, so then he had an awakening, and then he made this movie. It's like it is art. I will say it's art, but as a movie, it lacks. And I'm not asking for like a linear, straightforward, boring movie. I'm just asking for some of that structure that makes the plot make a little more sense.
I think I'm with you in the sense that it's obviously awesome, but it's in the way that it's awesome. There's no way that it's mainstream. It's not mainstream awesome.
Yeah.
There's no way that this many people really appreciate it for all that it is.
Right.
It just can't be possible unless I'm just so dumb.
No, see, I think that Spirited Away has become the symbol of the golden era of Studio Ghibli movies. It becomes, as it's most successful in the box office and the most award-winning one, it represents kind of the culmination of all of them. And so if you like any Studio Ghibli, you have to like this one.
And lots of those movies came out like in the 80s and earlier 90s, and this is 2001.
This is closer to the end of that era.
So people came in with that context that this is like his magnum opus. They've seen that whole career, and it all culminates into this. Okay,
Right.
with that context, I could start to understand.
And so I'd be interested to watch a more straightforward Studio like Ghibli movie with you guys. Like maybe even like Nausicaa and the Valley of the Winds. That's the first one they did, and that's a much more linear plot forward. And it's like kind of a more familiar plot structure you would kind of recognize. But I feel sad for you guys. I think you guys are missing out on some of this really cool
I
stuff.
feel sad for me too.
Yeah.
I want to sit down and just be like, wow, this is a masterpiece.
This is a movie that I enjoy with my brain more than my heart. This isn't a movie that makes me feel incredibly deeply in the same way that like Coco or Toy Story 2 does, where I'm like, oh, it's like pulling on your heartstrings. It's more like my brain is like constantly being pulled in different directions. And I'm like, whoa, that's cool. That's cool. That's cool. That's cool.
I mean, there are moments, right? There like
Like when No Face is puking everywhere, and you're just like, ah.
Well, as I said, the imagery is stellar. I have no complaints about the imagery. Like if I'm turning the structural part of my brain off, and I'm just like enjoying it as a feast for the senses, yeah, it's fantastic. It's great, but I'm not looking for that in a movie. I'm not looking to be taken on a virtual drug trip.
Have you seen Gravity in the theater?
I think I did.
trip.
Yeah, it was pretty. That was
Yeah,
like
it
a
was
roller
great.
coaster
It was
ride.
great. And same thing with Tree of Life was that by Darren
Malcolm.
Aronofsky?
No. It's
Malick.
Terrence Malick.
Terrence Malick. Yeah, like I loved that movie in the Malick. Darth Malick. I love that movie in the theater. It does. Similarly, that one doesn't make a ton of sense. But like, I was in this theater. There are these like cosmic parts where it's just like space and like nebula exploding and stuff, and you're just like, whoa, like that was amazing, and I loved that experience of it. But like, I feel like if I watched that movie again on my laptop, I'd be like,
Stop watching movies on your laptop.
no, I watched this on a 27-inch thing.
Ew.
What? That's all I got.
That's even, what,
Why don't you have a
in,
TV?
in someone's kitchen?
I don't have a TV.
Riley, you're not allowed to watch it on that. You have to come to one of our
It's an
places
iMac.
and
It's got
watch.
pretty good speakers. Oh. We watch it close.
Oh.
It's close up. It's on the
Oh, that
coffee
reminds
table.
me. Someone was asking about what of all our like setups are that we watch movies on and stuff. And I don't want to talk about that right now,
I
but
just
I
gave
do
mine
want to
away.
say that I think we should have like a Q&A mailbag episode at some point. So everyone should write in and tweet in different questions they have for us and all sorts to
Definitely.
Carpool Critics Twitter. How about this? Since David's going to be gone next week, we could do an episode with Riley and myself and a third person, maybe Brandon, maybe Linus, someone else who's available. Maybe someone who doesn't even work here. Maybe a girl. Maybe Miranda.
Sure.
Yeah.
I don't know.
We'll have to ask Linus. I don't know. But if you guys have any suggestions of who you want to see on the show, also tweet or email that to us.
Please. Are we watching Upward? Onward?
Onward. That comes out Friday, but I'd like to be there for that episode. I'm a Pixar fan.
All right. All right. Well,
You guys should do something really dark in between so that we can have like kids movie, dark kids movie. It's a nice sandwich.
True.
This isn't a kids movie. My kids would be so bored.
No, it is a kids movie. Anyways, we're not getting back into it. All right. Subscribe to us or follow us on Twitter and tell us what we should watch.
Turn this shit off.